This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
I can bring Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South into this because he knows Ty Richardson well. He had no idea who Phil Collins was. He knew who Lily Collins was because he had and still has a giant crush on Phil Collins' daughter, who is a very well-known actress. And he only knew Phil Collins from, what was the Disney movie that he did the theme song for? Otherwise,
Tarzan.
Tarzan. See, you and Ty are like almost around the same age, I think. So you knew that one and I didn't.
Yeah,
was that Brendan Fraser's Tarzan, or was that Robin Williams? Oh, Robin Williams, Jumanji. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think it was Brendan Fraser. I could be wrong on that. It was definitely the animated one that I remember. But Ty is missing an obvious layup here. The Hangover, Mike Tyson, Phil Collins. I mean, come on. That's a connection that's got to be made.
It was one of the many things that I taught him over like the 2.5 years.
He still got it. Together. Yeah, he still got it.
That's exactly right. So, Connor, I love your column here, and you wrote your column 4 days ago. So this was before yesterday's NFC Championship game, in which Jalen Hurts puts on another fine performance for a great team. But I mean, it's pretty obvious Jalen Hurts is built to last in the NFL, and when you are an opinionated columnist as you are, you've got to take your victory laps when you get the opportunity to, and you got to take your lumps when you got to take those as well. So the column was titled, "Man, Was I Wrong About Jalen Hurts?" And I got to tell you, I mean, Connor, you weren't the only one.
I know, but I do feel a sense of guilt because in hindsight, it's just so dumb to write off somebody who's 19 years old. And that's what I did. I mean, I said that Jalen Hurts was more dangerous with his legs than with his arm, and that wasn't lazy. That was watching him each and every week, and I still thought he was a really good college quarterback. I used to have to do the weekly quarterback rankings in the SEC back in 2017, and even as Jalen Hurts regressed, in my opinion, that year playing with Brian Dable, I still had him as my number one quarterback. So I didn't think he was bad, but I remember going into that offseason thinking, all right, Tua is obviously going to take over as a starter. Jalen Hurts might have a nice little college career when he transfers somewhere, but that's probably the last we'll really hear of him. And here he is. I mean, and the guy has just continued to get better. I thought it was so underrated what he did with Dan Enos back in 2018, and then obviously go play with Lincoln Riley in 2019. But he also went to the right NFL team, and a team that was willing to kind of build around his skill set. And we live in a time in which coaches are more willing to do that now with their quarterbacks. We're seeing that with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and we're seeing it now with Jalen Hurts. And, they were 0-2 without him, too, when he was hurt this year, which is something that's worth remembering for those who think he's a system quarterback. But, yeah, I whiffed on Jalen Hurts, and I'm still taking the L on that one.
Well, he's gotten better. I don't know that it's an L. I think you were kind of correct in your assumption, but he's had to work on his. He's not like Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow when it comes to his accuracy. It's something he has to work at, and his legs, kind of like a young Donovan McNabb a little bit, where he got better passing as he got on because he was able to rely on his legs because he is so successful running the ball.
Yeah, exactly. And you go to the right place in which they're not just going to try and put you in a box. And they let Jalen Hurts throw on field, too. I mean, everyone wants to say,
and they brought him along slowly, didn't they? Like, he didn't play until, the last 5 games of his rookie year or so? Like, they took their time with him a little bit.
Yeah, they kind of had a little bit of that system already in place, too, with Carson Wentz. And he ends up being able to take over for him. But, he was the 5th quarterback off the board in the draft and in the second round when he came off the board in 2020. And I don't really think anybody thought a whole lot of that. It was kind of like, all right, yeah, this is an unbelievable quarterback class with Herbert, with Burrow, with Tua, those guys at the top. I mean, Jordan Love went ahead of Jalen Hurts, which is just a funny thing to look back on. But, they did a really nice job of kind of understanding what he can do. And now he's so much better throwing the ball downfield. He's got the best quarterback rating in the NFL on passes that are 25 yards or longer. I mean, the guy has really worked, and with that mental makeup, that combination has just been really, really good for that team.
And when you're throwing to guys like Devontae Adams, that makes you look good as well, man. You see that catch he had? Man, that was sick.
Yeah, I mean, look, I remember him doing that at LSU, and that play was very reminiscent of it. And, another guy that people kind of slept on in the draft a little bit. And I understand, like, he's still a top 10 pick, so he's not really getting slept on. But he had a lot of criticism going into the draft, and he gets to go to a situation in Philadelphia where he's kind of an ideal number 2 for A.J. Brown, who's a little bit more built like a number 1 guy, and Devontae Smith can come out and make some ridiculous plays like that and be that ideal complementary guy that Jalen Hurts obviously relies on a ton.
Speaking of LSU, as you just brought them up, they did the best in the transfer portal in the SEC compared to everybody else. Now, I know Alabama's got the top-rated incoming freshman class, but as far as transfers, theoretically, those are the older guys, maybe a little closer to getting on the field and really helping. LSU seems to have done the best in the SEC in the transfer portal. And you've written today about LSU really being Alabama's biggest threat in the West Division. And I think going into last year, some folks thought it would be A&M. A lot of us were like, hold on a moment and look at the season they just had. Well, LSU is the defending SEC West champions going into next season, and they've got this great portal class coming in. And, I mean, Brian Kelly knows how to build winning programs. It's just, I don't know if we thought it would happen the first year that he was in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think you've seen these examples in the past, and it's the easiest thing in the world to say after a year 1 coach beats Bama that, this is just going to be the new standard. Kevin Sumlin did it with A&M in 2012. Gus Malzahn did it with Auburn. Of course, Kick Six 2013. 2 very notable games, obviously, with those first-year head coaches. But I think what's different is that you really need 3 things to be a threat. And Georgia is a threat, but Georgia obviously not in the West. So we're having this conversation talking about the divisions, which will likely be in place for the next 2 years, maybe just the next 1. But I think you need top 5 talent on the roster. And if you follow, 24/7 Sports, their talent composite rankings every year, LSU always has that. You need the right offensive scheme, and then you need a coach with a proven track record who handles success better than Ed Orgeron did. And I think that that's definitely part of it. And I think that LSU right now with Brian Kelly checks all 3 of those boxes. You add in the part about the portal and how well he is recruited there to be able to assess their different needs on that roster year in, year out. And I think that is the key to being a yearly threat. It doesn't mean that they're going to beat Alabama every year, but Bama really hasn't run into that team in their own division that has been able to kind of match up to them talent-wise with the right scheme, with the right coach, and obviously with top 5 talent. We've seen little glimpses here or there. Obviously, Ole Miss, mid-2010s with Hugh Freeze, but you didn't have top 5 talent. That obviously wasn't going to be as sustainable. This just feels like the most sustainable thing that we've seen in the West. And, of course, it's probably as divisions are coming to an end and they're not going to be playing each other on a yearly basis.
Now, O'Brien left Alabama. Who's the OC? Do we know who's going to be the OC at Bama now?
That's the ultimate question, man. That is the ultimate question right now. And it's going to be interesting because a lot of Alabama fans, I shouldn't say a lot, the vast majority of Alabama fans wanted Bill O'Brien gone. And they were not happy, even though they had consecutive top 6 offenses in college football. But you kind of look a little bit deeper into the numbers, some of the play calling issues, some of their best moments felt like Bryce Young doing things off script. And so there was a lot of frustration over Bill O'Brien, especially because he replaced Steve Sarkisian, who was one of the best coordinators of the playoff era. And now they're looking potentially at NFL guys. It'd be fascinating to see somebody like Jeff Lebby, who has been rumored for this opening, if he's going to leave his alma mater at Oklahoma to go to Alabama. That'd be a little bit of a kind of a like a horizontal type move, if you ask me, but I'm not making that decision. They could be considering somebody like Cliff Kingsbury. Kellen Moore would be fascinating.
Kellen Moore, I think, sorry,
looks
Kellen
like
Moore
he might be signing with the Chargers.
Yeah, great move for the Chargers, man. Going there with that young quarterback. Kellen Moore was not the problem at Dallas. I mean, yeah, right.
Yeah, that move is. So, I mean, there's another one off the board, but it's a weird time to hire a couple of coordinators late January. Like, this isn't usually when you're doing that. Arkansas fans have experienced what that's like in the cycle, and luckily, Sam Pittman had a plan in place. But, yeah, Alabama has a very coveted opening, I would think, and I would tend to think that they're going to make 2 big-time hires probably this week.
You see, Miami's got an opening for offensive coordinator, too. Talk about a late firing for a guy who was the best assistant coach in college football the year before. Josh Gaddis won the Broyles Award, and then a year later, he's fired. 1 year at Miami. And, I mean, it's like, he didn't forget. He didn't turn into a moron in just a year. It's just, I mean, when you're an assistant coach, when you're a coordinator, in college football, like your neck immediately is on the chopping block. I guess it depends on the program, of course, but I mean, that to me is like evidence of really like how difficult that job is. And also the thought of the grass is never, well, not always greener on the other side.
Phil, you're 100% right. And I wonder if there's a little bit that we can apply that to the Kendall Briles thing. If you're a coordinator, you rarely get to go out kind of on your terms. And you either stay long enough at a certain program to become the reason that you're losing and you get fired, or you move on to bigger and better things. And it is really difficult to sustain that role and to be the guy that is still in high favor with the head coach over a long period of time. Just doesn't happen very often. And it's super, super rare. And so I defend some of these coordinators when it looks like they're making the lateral move, even though sometimes we can sit here and question it. And I questioned it with Kendall Briles thing about what TCU has coming back compared to what Arkansas has coming back. But I kind of get it from that standpoint of feeling like, well, if my job is always going to be on the line, and if I'm always feeling like, man, it doesn't even matter, I could be the best assistant in college football the year before, and that still doesn't buy me a year of grace. It just kind of goes to show you that these things are very coveted. It is a tough job to keep, and it might explain why some of these coordinators look a little bit antsy and why they want to leave places so soon.
Yeah, you're hired to be fired, or at least hired to be criticized to the point to where you look for another job somewhere else. I got to ask you about the pizza. I texted you about it earlier. Detroit pizza. And I don't know a lot of people that necessarily know the style of Detroit pizza. I just know the fact that the photo that you tweeted a few days ago of this gorgeous pizza with dollops of what looked like ricotta and the pepperoni that was curled upwards and the cheese was crusty on the crust. And that looked like one of the best pizzas I could have eaten. Review.
You guys, solid 9.3. It was on the spot.
I like it.
It was a look. That's deluxe. I was born and raised suburbs of Chicago. Grew up with Chicago style pizza. I like all style of pizza, but it's Detroit style. For those who haven't had it, it's kind of a nice hybrid of the two because it's it's got that thick
like
outer layer,
like a pan pizza.
Exactly. So like you kind of get the best of both worlds, in my opinion. I do think it's a little bit underrated. I do, and I think that Little Caesars is trying to popularize it, but it's a little bit different when you get it from a local place or something like that. So
you mean
I think
good pizza instead of crap, which is basically what Little Caesars is?
Hey, your words, not mine.
Well, they're not an advertiser, so I think I can get away with that.
BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from the NFL and bowl season to esports. You'll find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. We're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. BetOnline, where the game starts.